Okay, so we will start the session. We will, of course, have Ms. Sandhya Gatti here. She's a wonderful educator as well, and I'm sure would like to hear her thoughts. So, welcome everyone to the online learning and early years panel. A very exciting panel because this concerns questions that are always asked on our parents. Parents always have questions about it. So my name is Shweta Sharan. I started the Bangalore School Group in 2012. My daughter was 2. I didn't know anything, and this was my way of finding out about schools in Bangalore. Apart from that, education as well. I just wanted to request if we can mute ourselves because I can hear some uh, sounds if it's possible. Thank you so much. So we have a wonderful panel of experts today. Really exciting to introduce them all. So first off, we have Mr. C.P. Vishwanath from he's an educator, musician, entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of one of India's most loved entities, Karadi Tales. My daughter loves Karadi Tales books. We watch all the sessions. We really enjoy it, and he specializes in so Paradi tools apart from making great books, also specializes in pedagogy for language acquisition. So he is in the co-inventor of the unique Paradi path methodology, which is possibly the world's only 100% derivative formal language learning process that delivers language proficiency without teaching a single word, meaning, or grammar. So the Karadi approach been proven to be 11 times more impactful than conventional language teaching processes. So so today this is followed in more than 3,000 schools and many government schools as well. His areas of expertise includes children content, school education, language learning, and music. It's great to have you with us. We're really looking forward to hearing your views on early years and online education. Thanks for being here. Thank you. And our next panelist, I think, please excuse me, I think Ms. Sandhya Gatti is here. Ms. Sandhya, if you can hear me, please do switch on your camera and your microphone as well, please. So our next panelist is Ms. Jayita Ganguly from who's a vice principal of Kunskapsskolen. Kunskapsskolen has a good relationship with Bangalore schools. We know your entire team; they are like family. And she has a vast experience of 14 years in teaching and leadership roles in the international and CBSE curricula. It's great to have you here with us and to lend us an insight into how to engage our children during this time, especially online. Our next panelist is Mr. Venkata Suresh Lola. He is the head of school at Ballistus International, which like Karadi and Kunskapsskolen is part of the Bangalore Education Online Expo. I strongly urge you to visit the stalls once you are, finished with the session. Hello, Miss Sandhya. Yeah.
Hi, Shweta.
Nice to see you here. Really nice to. Yeah, so Sandhya is also a good friend. She is with us a long time. So which brings me to Ms. Sandhya Gatti, our next panel. She is the head of pedagogy and teacher professional development at Chaman Bhatia School. Sandhya has been journeying the teacher's education space for more than 3 decades. I know this because almost everyone I meet in the expo or otherwise tells me I was mentored by Sandhya. So everyone knows her. And yeah, so she is amazingly qualified. She has a bachelor's degree in education, a master's degree in social work. She holds 2 international baccalaureate certificates in IB philosophy and planning, teaching and assessment. She is a certified program leader for the Cambridge International Diploma in Teaching, and apart from that, she is certified by the Center of Assessment, Evaluation and Research as a trainer for assessments, differentiated instructions, and CBSE's continuous comprehensive evaluation. I know Sandhya is a champion and advocate of teachers. So she runs teachers, she runs so many programs for teachers and builds them into a strong community. So it's wonderful to have you here with us, Sandhya. Thank you. And so today's discussion is about online education and the early years. Such an interesting topic, because as soon as the pandemic happened and the schools shut, Bangalore schools, the group was in total disarray. People were asking, I have a 3-year-old and online classes are not working. And can you
There's
hear
a
me?
disturbance, Shweta. We
There
can't
is?
hear you very well. There is some
Okay, can
disturbance.
everyone else hear me? I mean, is there
Okay.
yeah?
I can hear you, Shweta.
Okay. Okay.
Let me see.
So,
1 minute. Let me try this. Let me try putting the. Hello.
yeah.
Can you hear me,
Can you
Shweta?
hear me now? Yes, I can. I
Yeah.
can hear you.
Yeah.
And you can hear me as well? Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, as I was mentioning, parents of young children especially were finding it very confusing to navigate this tricky time as soon as the pandemic happened. We had a lot of them saying, I'm not able to engage my child in an online class. And many of them were saying, we don't want an online class. Many of them were saying, we need something to keep them, engaged for the day. And we polarizing views, and it was as an admin it was really hard because I had to keep in trying to moderate, but it was also interesting time to it was interesting to watch this play out. So as people who work with young children, we all believe that they learn through their sensorial experiences and activities. So teachers built their program around this aspect. They would prepare stimulating and engaging environments for them, and children would learn from these environments. But what happened now is such an interesting yet confusing thing. So I'd like to pose the first question to Mr. I think the first thing that I wanted to ask is it how can one create an online experience for the pre-primary children? I mean, is it first of all, is it possible to arrive at something that will work for them? Because they are children, they are people who love to walk and to explore, and you're asking them to sit in front of a computer. So, is it possible to create an effective experience for them online?
Namaste, I'm very happy to be here. Let's face, at least in my opinion, the fact is that what we can do as a result of online class, especially with very young children, is that it is a compromise. It is a question of saying that I have two balancing priorities, one of safety and the other of learning. Now, in an earlier situation, we all realize that a lot of the learning is silent, but there is huge amount of learning that happens. It may or may not be visible in terms of the tests that we give and the assessments that come in the classic way. But any lack of exposure, experience during these years, there is an immeasurable impact at a later point in time. So we take it very seriously. I mean, especially those who are focused on early childhood education, realize that much of the work that they do may not be visible immediately, but you still will say that, I am a responsible educator and hence I need to create the richest possible environment for my child. I need to offer the child, unconditionally a lot of different experiences and exposure without expectations. So the whole idea is each child will take whatever it is that he or she has. He or she chooses to take, and each child will express himself or herself at the appropriate time when they are ready to, express themselves. So you really can't say that I'm giving you one input, let us see whether you have an output to show me. So much of the conversations around milestones of learning for very young children, I personally, do not agree with a lot of the talk that's out there. It is more for the learners, the educators' validation that you start creating matrices around which you want to measure. In an online situation, what we have done is that let's look at the positives. Okay? I think, and we deal with a very large number of schools. and we deal with this cross spectrum of schools from the top schools, ICSE schools, to a government tribal school. We have the unique situation of connected communities, digitally disconnected communities, and how do you innovate for each of these places so that you still keep the learning going, so that there's no lockdown on the learning side of things. So when you look at, and we have sat in on a lot of online classes as a part of this process, and you realize that the positive thing is that teachers have taken to technology very, very quickly. Teachers have innovated very quickly. Teachers have become curators, teachers have become writers, teachers have become storytellers. Teachers have pretty much, donned on roles that they probably did at some level in the past. But if you were to look at the 6-month growth or the 8-month growth, I really think that this residue will continue, and that there will be a lot that will happen as an outcome of this, even when we return to, let us say, more conventional classroom time. So on that front, I think we have watched the growth of teachers who say, where is this button, where is that button, I'm not able to do this and that and everything, to becoming savvy presenters on the screen. That said, I am a teacher who is used to building the environment, having, let's say, 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 children in a dedicated space of learning, where all the children have had their breakfast, all the children have, come to school with a certain level of commitment or conditioning that is already there, with a certain receptivity. Now I am dealing with 20 different classroom environments or 30 different classroom environments at home, which means that one child is still, in the middle of his breakfast. There are even children who are brushing their teeth when the online classes are going on. So now this teacher suddenly has to deal with something in front of a screen. And there is, however experienced you are, you're going to be thrown off, from what your capability. So your own capability has been compromised by, 40-50%, because your eyes are there on all these screens, all these little screens. And you're saying that, how do I engage this child? How do I engage this child? So the stress of offering, whatever it is that I have to offer, actually compromises my own efficiency as a teacher, as an educator. And that sometimes is something that we don't, take seriously enough, to say that this is not about the teacher's preparation. It is about the fact that the home now has to function in coordination, where what the school can do, there is a certain limitation. Now the responsibility of the home goes up very substantially, which means that the parent has to play a role. People who are there at home have to play a role. People have to say that until and unless I prepare my child to accept whatever it is that is happening there, that little bit of preparation, whatever it is that I choose to do with my child, and I know my child well, that you are simply going to say, ki, 9 baje, baito, aage shaam. You seat them there. What is going to be the receptivity, and what is going to be the efficacy of learning? So these are questions that I think gradually, with many of the schools where we are involved in, we did lots of parent webinars in terms of early learning, in terms of saying what is it that can happen online and what is it that you need to take offline. Especially if I'm looking at a first standard child or a lower kindergarten child, or I would say all the way up to class 4, it is, unless and until the home is going to play a substantial role, there is a certain, achieving the same level of outcomes or same levels of learning is going to be very difficult. But many parents have also risen to the challenge, because obviously there is a certain amount of anxiety about the fact that my child who is today in UKG has to go to class 1. What are the expectations of class 1? And the other thing we have to look at specifically from the area that we work in, which is language acquisition, is that, how many remedial teachers is the first standard teacher going to receive? And, how am I going to actually be able to transact on a lot of things that I'm supposed to transact in when it comes to class 1? The advantage, and a little bit later I will talk about it, of creating, curating, and offering a very ready-made set of things for the teacher to be able to still facilitate and present, which is not pure screen time, but which is something that has a lot of physical activity that can happen with the screen in play, and the online and the offline activities curated and presented to the teacher, they offer, you're only trying to increase it as much as you possibly can. It is not going to be the normal school day, but we make the best of whatever it is that we can do. And there's a lot that can be done in terms of enhancing that process. I'll stop here.
I absolutely understand what you mean, because it is about making the best of the situation and finding something that will work, which is still learning and teaching. Because I have a friend who has a very small baby, and they tried doing a lot of lessons and it just didn't work. And finally, they were washing the toys, and the children loved it. They were just washing it, in a tub, and it was sensorial. It was fun. I mean, you have the sequencing. So it was so my next question is to Sandhya. Sandhya, so you must be creating the for Chaman Bhatia, you must have started engaging with your children, especially the pre-primary. I know a few parents who send their children to Chaman Bhatia, and they've mentioned that they really like how you engage the children. You blend everything so well. So can you tell us more about your approach and what you believe teachers, parents, and educators should do to make this work? Because it's not there's no perfect way to do this. So how what would your thought on this be? Sunday, I can't hear you. It's not mute, but for some reason, maybe the headphone is plugged in, or no. No worries, it's okay. So we have a good turnout for this event. I think a lot of people want to know, and it's good to see all of you here. So for those of us who are joining a little late, this session is about online education in the early years. I'm just waiting for Sandhya to fix her. No worries, Sandhya. I can come to you later as well. No worries. So yeah, so no worries. I'll come to you later, Sandhya. So I'll maybe go to Mr. Lola. So I just want to know how does, similar to what I asked Sandhya, how does Valistus work with children in this age group? What is your approach? And what has your experience been like, and what youth has worked for you? Mr. Lola, you can hear me?
Am I audible? Excuse me?
You're audible. You're audible.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So basically, what I was trying to tell is, like Sandhya rightly pointed out, there is no right and wrong way for doing this online teaching and learning, because everybody all around the world has been practicing it for the first time. So we initially began with actually taking the parent consensus. So we had a meeting with our parents to find out whether they would be interested to come in online and then seek education for their kids, especially for the foundation stage 1 and foundation stage 2, because nursery kids are quite little, to face an online class. Then we came up with a system wherein we initially trained our parents on several aspects. I mean, how we usually do the continuous professional development for teachers. This time we did it with parents, because we would want to engage kids very effectively, because those are the ones who are next to kids when the online lessons happen. And of course, as you all agree, initially there was slight confusion on what is to be done, what not to be done from the government. We all waited for those guidelines. We came up with a very good approach of giving project-based learning modules, thematic-based modules for kids, which they have worked up with the parents, and then they used to send us short videos for us to review, and then teachers bonded independently with each child from time to time. So it's not like of course we did online sessions, few of them. Definitely these can't be very long. These has to be very short, 30-minute sessions, wherein we had 2 teachers per 6 students, who have, one does the job of observing kids and then seeking the feedback to the main teacher. I think a system like this would effectively work. And what we have noticed from our kids is they have definitely picked up a lot of things in these few months which we were doing online. And I feel, the principle of knowing everything, which kids always would do, kids as young as 2 to 6 would want to explore and then know anything around them. So I think the project-based learning technique is the right technique, wherein we can integrate all the elements concerned to communication language, physical development, personal, social, emotional development. We can embed them together, right? Where they would see the elements of literacy, numeracy, and understanding the world all together, right? And this has definitely paid up a good outcome, I would say. And we also ensured that we gave in good number of uh, snippet videos for children, to enjoy music, art, because these are the elements which normally a child would do when they come into school. Almost every 4 weeks, and it is still ongoing, because see, one thing what I observed from time to time is, if we don't change our framework, kids get easily bored. So I think the apt way would be understanding what are the needs of the group, right? And making the changes as per the needs of the group is what is required for today. And that's what Valistus is doing now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think I missed a little bit of it because I got logged out. I mean, you can imagine how it's like for teachers and children, constantly navigating this ship. But yeah, I mean, I understand that, having different kinds of activities really helps. For instance, games. And I know a lot of children just want to see their friends, or other children, just to see them there. And my daughter is one of them. She just wants to see her friends. So even that can trigger other, connections, and we will be able to work so much better. So Sandhya, I think I wanted to ask you more about how Chaman Bhartiya works. And as you know, multisensorial experiences are such an important part of our children's lives, forget a school, they even taking them out where they can go and touch trees and the grass, where they can touch and feel and see so much that is not there. So not only are you not at school, you're not also not in you are not outside. So how do you develop online interactions and content and engagements for children in Bhatia?
Am I audible?
Yes.
It is-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not audible. I think I've lost you again. You were. No. It still happens. Yeah. I can hear a little now. You can type in the chat if you want to me. Okay. It's okay. So I think I'll come. I'll save. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, can
No,
you
no
hear?
worries. Yes,
Can
now
you
I
hear?
can hear you. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm sorry. I'm very, very
No, no
sorry.
worries at all.
I
This
mean,
is the new normal for all of us.
yeah,
So
I know.
yeah.
So, like I said, there are several challenges, and one was starting online where we had not even seen our children. You know, the teachers had not met the children. So, for a very long time, we actually resisted the urge to begin the school at all in the first place, especially for early years. So, what we tried was we had a solid discussion about how do we how do we help children learn while maintaining our philosophy of holistic approach. Like, how do we keep the idea of holistic while we are also going digital? Like, so a lot of discussion and deliberation around what would be helpful. So we started very, very gradually. The process began in stages. So first thing we did was we started sending children activities home, in the sense through newsletter, where the family could get together and the children can do things with their families. And these were really thought out, thoughtful, interesting. So it could be a reading, a nice story that the children would read, and they would record their thoughts about the story and send. And children actually did these. So we felt, okay, since we have crossed this hurdle, let's begin 30 minutes a day, only twice a week. And here the teacher, no, even before we went online, the teachers, our facilitators, we had one-on-one Zoom session with all the parents and children to get an idea of who are these people who we are going to be facilitators to. So we found, and it was an amazing experience, because we got to see the children in their environment. We got to see what kind of upbringing they were going through, what was their what were their likes and dislikes. So teachers really gathered a lot of data about the child, and not just the basic, like they say na ke what do you like and what do you not like. It was not that, but looking at what were the parents aspirations for their children, what was it that the children themselves liked. So there was a very, very long and elaborate understanding phase, understanding your learners phase, that the teachers went to. And then they started working on what would be the best way to interact with these children. So the children had already become familiar, one, with who the teachers were. The third step was the teachers actually met the children online, one-on-one, not online, offline. So the parents came, we took all the protocols, safety protocols, we sanitized the environment where the child was going to come. And the facilitators spent some time. See, because for children, if you introduce them to the screens, they already do, actually. They look at YouTube, they look at, but here what is happening, the screen is speaking back to them, right? The character is addressing, are who are you, beta, what are you doing? The child, if you think from the child's perspective, it is like, oh my god, all this while I was watching a cartoon, nobody ever called me by my name and expected me to respond, but now this is happening. So for the children to know that there is a real person on the other side, we had to bring that connection. So we did that, and that was like our third phase. The fourth phase was actual online teaching, where the children behind their screens, and in front of the screens behind the camera. And the teachers were started with very simple getting to know session. So here's the thing, we one thing I feel schools should reconsider and think about is the dreaded word called portions. So we decided we will not have a portion. So we were in no hurry to say that we have to complete ABCD, we have to complete XYZ, we have to complete 1 to 100. We didn't have that. So we thought, what were the most essential requirements right now? what are the most essential needs that the children have. So we started with storytelling, we started with one-on-one informal interaction, a lot of, and the teacher, I wish I could show you what that room looks like. The facilitators actually evolved with the children. So initially there were issues where the children would be there for some time, then disappear, then come again, sit with parents. But today they're independent and they're actually looking forward to meeting. The second thing we regulated was time. We wanted to be sure that the children are not spending an unwanted amount of time on the screen. So they started with 30 minutes a day for twice a week and gave asynchronous activities, that is offline. So the teachers would just introduce something, and then there were activities which were given that the child could complete at home. Now, this meant that this whole structure meant, or coming up with something like this meant, that we had a very, very strong support from the parent body, which is why we placed it right in the beginning that we cannot do this without your support. So the parents and the facilitators have been very strongly working together, like we are on the same side, and we are looking at, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. One person can't do it. As much as we may say we are facilitators and we have to teach, the idea is without the parent you can't do it, especially in times like these, and these are uncertain times now. So that's how from sending things home.
So I think, I think she'll get back on. Just wait for her. I think what you said was so right. I never thought of it from that perspective. That the child has to reconcile the fact that the person who's speaking to him or her is an actual person. Because so far I've only been watching Peppa Pig on YouTube or other stories, but they still don't know that there is someone there, as behind the screen. So that's a really good point, actually. I mean, I would have never thought of it from that perspective at all. So I think Sandhya has some network issues. I'll come back to her. I wanted to give the next question to Ms. Jaita. So when this pandemic happened and we went to online learning, one of the topics of discussion was screen time. So again, there's varying opinions on screen time. The American Pediatric Association says one thing, NIMHANS has its own, what they prescribe as the ideal screen time. So, what are your views on screen time? And at Kunstkapskollen, how did you counsel your parents, and how did you kind of work with them on this?
So, good afternoon to all. So, Shweta, like Sandhya was mentioning, how we started going about it was by getting parents on board with us. So, we all know that parent collaboration is extremely important. And for this particular time that we are going through, the new normal, parent collaboration is at its most crucial. So, to kind of get them on board, their understanding how much time they will be able to spend with the child, what time that we should start the class, the session, so that because they need to be there with the little ones, they need to be there to operate the system, or just to even make sure that the child is there, available to sit in front of the screen. So we needed their collaboration in that, and through the directives set by the state about screen time and about NIMHANS coming up with its horrifying results of brain disorders coming up with happening exposed screen time. It was a very restless, a very chaotic time, both for parents and for educationists, to come up with a solution. How do we, should we or should we not? So I think at this point, Shweta, that when the online classes, even for the little ones, even for the pre-primary children, have transformed into a well-oiled machine, I would say. I think it wasn't easy to come up to this, to this stage. How it happened for us was through a lot of small steps taken to, and screen time. What we have a very limited screen time throughout the day, so it's even now to this day at Kunskapsskolan, we do not let the children get exposed to more than 1 hour of screen time. So it's half an hour of learning time for them, in which the first 5-10
So I think Jyota also is happy. I can hear someone speaking, but I can't see her.
I think this platform sucks a lot of bandwidth.
Probably, yeah. I think because many people are there, it can happen. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's possible. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I'll ask Jayita the question when she's back. I have a lot of questions to ask both her and Sandhya. Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd ask you the same question, Mr. Vishwanath, about screen time. So that's Ms. Jayita said that 1 hour is what they typically wouldn't go beyond, and I'm assuming that it won't be at a stretch. You will have different other activities in between. So what is your thought on screen time and the debate around it for toddlers and preschoolers? Am I still audible? Harika, can you hear me?
Yes, Shweta ma'am, you're completely audible.
Yeah, I'm audible. Okay, okay. I think everyone's having bandwidth issues, which is...
I had also got dropped off. I'm sorry about that. I realized.
Yeah. Okay. I think I was asking the question to Mr. Vishwanath and he got logged off. And yeah, I mean, like he said, this platform uses a lot of bandwidth. Can you hear me now, Jay? Yes.
Yes, I can hear you now, Shweta.
Go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, so Shweta, like I was saying, so even to this day, we have 1 hour of, we have capped it at 1 hour for the little ones, wherein the first 1 hour is given to a learning session, and then they have a 15-minute of break time, followed by another half an hour of a course collaboration. So everything kind of aligned to what their learning needs are at this point, which is building whether it's building their skills in literacy or in numeracy or in the motor skills or in social skills. We have had to realize that like right now the students know that this is the half hour. Today we have language, then today we have PE with the PE teacher. They kind of have gotten used to the groove, but before it happened, our teachers spent a lot of time working on each student individually. So there would be personal sessions wherein the teacher would sit with the child and talk about and listen to the child talk. And this would go on for this went on for at least a month. Learning sessions would be not more than half an hour each week, but the teacher getting in touch with the student and getting to know them, getting to know what they're making them comfortable basically to the teacher and to the environment. Because let us admit it, we all know that the online classrooms have this challenge at the technological, at the emotional, and at the instructional levels as well. The challenges are there. Like for in the physical offline classroom, then a teacher can have an instruction given out, and the students follow her in a jiffy. the same instruction would take about 10-15 minutes for the student to understand and follow. And teachers would have to come up with so many more examples than they would if they were in a regular offline classroom. So the most important thing was, according to us, to make them comfortable and to make them kind of well acquainted, well familiar with the teacher and with their classmates. So once that happened, everything started falling in place. And even to this day, how we follow this is that when an instruction is given, am I audible? Because
Yes, I am. I can hear some background.
I think there is some glitch somewhere. Yeah.
No,
So,
I
okay.
think
So,
Can
yeah.
you hear, Shweta?
So,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can. I think maybe we can mute ourselves to kind of
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
so even now, when they are quite familiar with the learning environment on the online platform, what works for us very well is the fact that teachers have taken that extra time to connect with the student parallelly to their to their learning sessions. So, for example, if the concept of writing C or another letter or a sight word has been taught, and how the way the teachers ensure that that the student is at par with the learning is to kind of pull them out individually and tell the student, ask them how to write the stroke, make the writing happen in front of them, or ask them questions to check for understanding individually. And once they know that the students have caught up with the with what they want to communicate, that they again put them in the larger group and they continue with the lessons. So like we all have probably touched this point, that it has been an exponential learning for teachers and for all of us, and especially for teachers, because it is a very vulnerable, it puts them in a very vulnerable stage, is to go to anybody's house, like, because they're exposed in front of the entire parent community doing their job, being under continuous scrutiny, and being able to convey the information that they want to convey successfully as well. Like, so but I think all the teachers all across the world, I would say, have done a phenomenal job taking up handling this new normal, wherein yes, and to answer, go back to your question, Shweta, even now I do feel that the screen time, since it has to be limited, and in that we cannot tamper or we cannot play around with, we have had to ensure that it is worth it. Like, whatever half an hour we spend with the student, whatever 1 hour we spend with the students, it is so enriching that the effect of it continues for the rest of the day. So, and it has to be, it cannot be just a half an hour, 1 hour class by its own. There have to be, it has to be supplemented with time plans which are sent. Like, our teachers have a list of activities that they send to the parents for kind of reiterating the concept that they have done at school. And they are not homework, they are like small fun activities that the parents can do with the children, and we send them every week in a bulk, so that throughout the week the parents have the flexibility to work on the time plan as per their availability. Because let's admit it, parents are also super busy. It's not like they're sitting at home just taking care of kids and making sure that collaboration with the school is happening. They have their own battle at the work field, and but they have been excellent in giving us the support that we need. They have helped us in assessing the child by sending us videos and pictures and documentaries of child work that the child has accomplished at home. So which has helped us in kind of assessing that whether whatever we have taught, whether the child is reaching the milestones that are expected of them at that age. So it has been a very uphill battle, but now at this juncture, I feel that we have come out stronger. All of us have come out stronger from all of this. So parents and the school are in a better relationship than they were ever before, because now they're continuously working in sync with each other. And not just that, like, our teachers have like visited their houses for virtual coffee meets. So the relationship has gone beyond classroom, and it has gone to a personal, interpersonal level as well, wherein they have developed that interdependence. So the new normal has taught us all a lot of things, and one of the biggest things that it has taught is that the quantity of screen time has to be limited, but the quality of it has to be enriched, so much so that the quantity that it compromises, that it compensates for the quantity of it, the less quantity of it. I think I'll rest my case here.
No, absolutely. And I think Sandhya was talking about that as well, about creating the ideal scenario. This was before she got locked off. So, Sandhya, you want to finish what you were saying, and then I'll move on to Mr. Vishwanath with that.
Yeah, that was kind of, I wanted to wrap it up by saying that it is not a one person thing, and this is how ideally school should work. We have come to this point because of the pandemic. So for us, the advantage was we had time to think about how we wanted to go about, starting school for children. So we had that time, but the disadvantage was these were absolutely new learners for us. So I think what is important is for schools to become cognizant of the situation and then see what's the best thing that can be done. So it shouldn't be about, oh my God, I've got XYZ things to complete. How will I do it? Please remember that these are little children. That if they don't, I mean, with little children, there's no such time as no learning, because whatever children do, even their play, even their even when they cry for something, it is learning. We may not label it as a school and education, but it is learning. So you don't, and in early days, who went to school? There are places who do not send their, the idea of preschool doesn't even
Yes.
exist.
Yes.
It is new even for us. So what did children do then? Did they become incapable learners because they came to school at the age of 6? No, they didn't. In fact, they were better learners. So the whole idea, I mean, it's not just a very superficial question. It is something that demands the deeper understanding of parenting, deeper understanding of our social systems, and deeper understanding of our own education system. Like, what do we really want to do? So our idea was not to really accomplish academic content, but to see if academic content comes in play, if it comes seamlessly into, like, if I'm learning, looking at the world and looking at a tree, then I may want to know what a tea looks like. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say, and I think the facilitators have done a great job in terms of how they have best part was to see them evolve. And there was a lot of another thing I must say, what we did was we first trained the facilitators to use the digital platforms well. They were not thrown into this situation. They were given a lot of heads up. They were given training. They were asked to think about what, and there was a lot of discussion before the activities went online. So it's not something that we did, just off the cuff. It was a very, very well thought out, well researched process, I would say. And that helped in making what it is today. Today, if you look at the facilitator's room, like our earlier space, it's like a little theater adda. They have all these nice things behind them, and every day they're doing something new. They're looking at different ways of delivering content. Sometimes it is interface, sometimes they record interesting sessions outside, they themselves act it out. They do little plays, if it is concepts like in and out, under, over, whatever it is, opposites. They actually carry out a little role play, they record it, and they send it to the children. They send recorded sessions to children. So it's a blend of many things. It's a blend of what they do at home with parents. It's a blend of what teachers do, what they do in it, how technology is integrated, all within that 30 minutes that they do in a, with very, very limited screen content. Like, I agree completely with Jaita that it is quality over quantity. I really know of schools where the quality is absolutely phenomenal.
yeah, I think Sandhya was going to say that there are schools that have really long sessions, which is true. I mean, that happens sometimes. Uh, that can happen. It's not possible to replicate the entire process online. That's kind of not how it works. I know because my daughter is not. She learns better in person and with a teacher next to her. So she craves that interaction, and which is why we really miss. She misses going to school. So, Mr. Vishwanath, my next question is to you. So, this is a question that I wanted to ask because on my own, but it was already asked by someone here. Mr. Devnath Venkateshan asks, now that both the father and the mother are expected to get back to work, how do you engage a child this young? How do you create an environment of immersion for language skills and development? So obviously, a lot of people are, worried that, of course, while you can let them grow at their own pace, you still have a few language skills, listening, for instance, and then taking instructions, which they do so much of in schools. So how can you facilitate that, especially when both parents are working? It's very hard, I know, because I work, my husband works. It's really, really hard for us to take turns and to sit with our daughter. So what would your take on this be?
I think this does have a little bit to do with the screen time idea as well, because I really think that it is misunderstood when we presume that screen time is some new phenomenon. Okay, number one. Our children have been watching TV. When I talk about my 30-year-old son or 31-year-old son, I mean, there's been a fair amount of screen time at any point in time, and it continues to be a part of many of our lives. I mean, there are parents who will completely shut it off, but the reality is the fact that this is not some new phenomenon. The challenge really is in terms of now, when, as I said right in the beginning, when you ask a teacher to don so many different hats in a very short period of time, I am doing my best, but there are certain limitations. If I have, how well do I speak? What is my background and what is it that I have received? All of these have a reflection in terms of what my interaction with the child is going to be. So we had a very huge advantage in the fact that 24 years of creating content and the rich repository that Karadi Tales and Karadi Path have created over the years basically means that I have hundreds and hundreds of options by which to stitch together a class where the teacher where she is capable, she plays the lead role, where she feels that she needs something else. So it is curated. There's a whole lot of options available, both online as well as offline. And so this is a program called Karadi Kaksha that most of the schools that were using Karadi Path have started using as an online methodology. So screen time is really a question of, now how do you engage this 1 hour if there's a lot of physical activity during this 1 hour? So if you look at how the offline transfers, there's a lot of theater activity, there's a lot of mime activity, there's a lot of conversational activity, and models are given for the parents to be able to do it with their children. So even parents need guidance, the teachers need guidance. So the moment you provide them this menu, what you find is that we get hundreds and hundreds of videos from homes which show how the grandfather is playing the role of a lion, the child is playing the role of a fox, and they are having this whole theatrical episode, and there are children singing. So Karadi Tales and Karadi Path anyway have always been hugely multisensorial. We even say that language learning must happen with the body. A body plays a very huge part in language learning. Music plays a very large part in language learning. So all of these tools were embedded, and we had the best actors, best musicians, best writers, best illustrators, a lot of exposure to art. All of this happening at this, in this little capsule, we were able to put all this together. So when the parent is not available, now coming to the answer to the question, the thing really is, how much can you expect a 5-year-old child to do if you do not offer them something either in terms of tangible activity that they can do on their own, or some activity which is an instructed activity that they can engage with. So we, instead of looking down upon the digital opportunity that is there, we basically have to say that how do I reinvent the digital opportunity in such a manner that I don't develop tunnel vision? I am not like a zombie sitting out there and just, consuming whatever is being, that is, I am thinking. See, the whole idea of screen time is most of the screen time is something that it does not let you think. Most of the cartoons that our children watch, basically are things that dumb down the child's own responses. Now, this screen time is about responding. This screen time, when you curate it in a manner where the response and thought process is actually being triggered, then you can make it independent screen time, you can make it guided screen time, you can make it parent or teacher guided screen time, and then you can transition that to physical activity, because I have demonstrated how you do something, and then you take your piece of paper and you're doing something. I am teaching you language, saying that, pick up the pencil and place it on the table, so the child does this. Go to the door, stomp out of the door, and there is a demonstration by an actor who does that, and the child does the same thing. So syntactical understanding, vocabulary gathering, all of these things happen because this curated material is available, because these were, in the beginning, these were developed for children in government and tribal schools, where the teacher herself did not have good English. And now suddenly, the top schools in India are actually using these models, because for the parent, it's a good model. Not all homes have, parents who can speak good English. So from a language learning standpoint, from a reading standpoint, there are a whole series of tools that are embedded in the Karate Kaksha modules. So the parent is able to work with the child without necessarily being hampered by, do I have that capacity myself or not? Because the activity that is being generated is a two-way activity, but one of those parts is actually curated from very, very good models. So the child is listening to very good models. The child is replicating good models, whether it's in terms of speaking, syntax, pronunciation, vocabulary, and the richer that the child's exposure to languages, the richer the child's language will be. And listening, as you said right in the beginning, is really 80% of language is about what you listen. If I listen to really good speakers around me, I turn out to be a good speaker. If I'm being read out really beautiful books to me, I turn out to imbibe all the words there. And there is no such thing as grade level, which is one of those silly things that is there in language, adopted from a lot of different societies. It's simply a 4-year-old who has been read to a lot, who has been spoken to a lot, and who has had this opportunity of imbibing a lot of language, comes out at a 4th grade level child in terms of the spoken language and the ability to comprehend. So it is not a limitation of the child, it's a limitation of, do I know how to offer it? And how rich can I make the environment? And that's really where the parent's presence or the parent's absence has to be compensated through extremely well created material and exposure opportunities. I think Shweta's probably lost her connection. So any of the others, since there's an audience out there, if you want to just continue, let us continue with the conversation until Shweta returns.
I think, sir, there's a question for you. Somebody has asked and he has mentioned that this question is for Venkat Suresh, sir, that I feel we are talking about a city-based parental demography which can afford to provide gadgets for children. We are talking about schools who have the required infrastructure. What about the have-nots is what he wants to know. So, sir, would you like to take that up?
Is this question directed to me?
Yes, sir. He has mentioned that my last question to them.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, see, I think that's actually a very good question. Most of the time, we don't worry about, the ones who are privileged, who are in the schools, who are going to the schools, which can, provide all these facilities. And what about those who can't, right? And what about those who are in the villages? Now, so I think this is a question which needs to be addressed by the government rather than any of us. See, today, fortunately or unfortunately, there are different programs managed by the government in different forms to the needy, right? Unfortunately, education always got a last priority in this country. I think if government has at least the slightest inclination towards giving little more comfort, uh, I mean, in terms of education to the people, to those in the villages, it can be definitely be done. I mean, it's only a will. I mean, we can look at the example of the Kerala government, which has started online lessons right from April, and they have successfully done these lessons. See, I think what is required is just an initiative from the authorities end, to look at, and of course, today in India, every third person has got a smartphone, and then there is access to technology everywhere. Let's not say that people don't have access. It's there. And then India offers the cheapest internet in the world, one of the countries which is offering the cheapest internet. I think we should, make use of these aspects, and see to that those gaps are bridged. Of course, as international schools, we are always open to give our part to the community, right? Because we feel we are responsible, we are a part of the community. Definitely, if anybody wants to connect me to some authorities, if they need some materials as to what we are doing, we would give them.
So I'd like to actually weigh in on that question because we work with close to about 3,000 government and tribal schools in addition to the private school space.
That same question has been asked to Mr. Vishwanath as well.
Okay. Yeah. So we have. So during this pandemic, one of the biggest challenges that we faced, and given our objective also is as a social impact enterprise, is to bridge the digital divide, bridge the gap to the extent that we can. So there are Maharashtra tribal schools, about 400 of them, that actually have been using Karadipath for the last 2 years. So we provided them with a list of things that they can do, and the amazing things, and there are many videos that you can check out, of teachers going to the tribal hamlets, conducting the Karadipath class in the street, in a temple, using a car audio to actually give the audio inputs. So the kind of innovation that actually happened in some of these spaces, it doesn't get the visibility, but it was, the enthusiasm of the teachers, the enthusiasm of the children, parents participating along with them, from these, really rural hamlets. I mean, it is touching, it is impressive, it is amazing in terms of the innovation and not all of these ideas were given by us. Most of these ideas, and the moment we saw a teacher using an idea, we would immediately go and say all the Tamil Nadu tribal schools which are using the Karadipath program to say, hey, look at, watch this video and see whether you can do it. And immediately you find that the moment you give them direction, teachers in these schools do go the extra mile to push themselves. I mean, they need a little bit of ideas. I mean, they need a little bit of, material, or they need some inspiration. And finally, in the last, about a month ago, the Andhra Pradesh government, which was using Karadipath in their KGBV, Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya schools, came to us and said that, can we do something? We are doing the English program on DD Saptagiri. None of the children even want to watch it. Can you do something for us? And now we are into our, I think, 11th episode yesterday. And we are doing a 30-episode series where 50 minutes on DD Saptagiri at 11 o'clock every weekday. Now suddenly you are getting lots and lots of responses from the students in terms of, again, the advantage that we have is the curation of material that we have gathered over 24 years. So it's not something that we produced yesterday. And all we needed to do was sit down, structure it, stitch it together in a manner which is engaging. So you have Karadi the bear coming and saying that, let's learn English together, let's speak English. So they're singing, they are doing theater, they're doing all kinds of things out there. And children are not sitting just watching, they are once again active. So Doordarshan actually, and I would say that, like Mr. Suresh Lola said, Kerala government used TV very well. Diksha TV, which is the national MHRD's initiative, has also been, moving at a furious pace in terms of the kind of content aggregation and the content dissemination that's actually happening now. Unfortunately, there's not enough, let us say, coverage about how many students are actually using these. Our Doordarshan Saptagiri program is probably, we have about 1.2 million who we say have gone through Karadi Path. I think we have crossed 1.2 million in the last 12 days of just this coming out on Doordarshan Saptagiri. So we can't measure this reach, but it is, Doordarshan has a huge reach across India. And so that's a platform by which the governments have been, Maharashtra government is also doing programs on Doordarshan. Tamil Nadu government has its own Kalvi TV channel over which it is doing. So there's a fair amount of, action happening. I'm not saying that this is the ideal scenario, but people have scrambled. Genuinely, a lot of people have worked very hard. Like the private schools, in the public space, in the government space also, there's been a lot of, aggressive effort, which may not have actually gotten visibility, in the way that some other things get visibility.
I would just add on one point, sir. At any point, if you feel that you need some schools to give you some assistance, we would be very happy to do it. And I definitely feel we are all morally responsible to the community. Definitely, please feel free to approach us, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We certainly would.
Oh, okay. Shweta has been logged off, and I sincerely apologize that I also couldn't get on to be the moderator early on. So we've been both of us, and I also see that Sandhya Gatti is also having some trouble with her internet connection or her electricity. And I missed part of this discussion. I came towards the end, which was very interesting, and I would definitely love to take this forward from Bangalore schools as well. We're thinking of having another session on another platform in our group later on. And I think Shweta is still trying to get on. She's having some trouble. I will have to wind up this session. Thank you so much, but unfortunately, we have been having issues with this, and I'm sure there were some questions coming up on WhatsApp as well, which I haven't been receiving. Shweta has been, and we're not able to get that questions now. So thank you so much to the panelists, and I hope we can take this discussion also forward. As I said, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vishwanath. Thank you, Ms. Jayita. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
meeting
you,
all
sir.
of you. In touch.
Nice meeting all of you. Thanks. Bye. Thank you, Sandhya.
This is the